Okay, hey, welcome to an episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. A really special Seiko Saturday video for you guys. A little bit about the brand. They were founded back in 1881. They're Japanese in origin and now have factories throughout Asia. They cover all market segments from entry level to high end, and this kind of covers a bit of a gambit for them in terms of the spread and the breadth within their Seiko Prospex line. And one thing that I really like is that this year, with a couple new releases, Seiko quietly released its own named trilogy that parallels the Omega Trilogy of their Railmaster, Seamaster, and Speedmaster, providing a well-rounded, same brand 3-watch collection with heritage. So I'm excited about that. Of course, we have the Seiko Alpinist, the Seiko Marine Master, and the Seiko Speedtimer, all reborn in these modern Prospex lines in a way that are, I think, quite versatile, especially in these monochromatic layouts, to where they do share some DNA, but they all do bring something different enough to where you could literally have just these 3 watches and probably be pretty okay in terms of your daily wear. I mean, maybe you might want to pick up a King Seiko as a dedicated dress watch, but other than that, I think that this is pretty outstanding. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get these pieces in hand, and take a closer look. Okay guys, now individually each one of these honestly has the potential to be a 1-watch collection because, again, they are very well rounded, even down to the water resistance. I mean, you have 300 meters, 200 meters, and 100 meters of water resistance. Of course, with this monochromatic colorway in terms of the layout, this is going to be something that's going to fit, again, pretty much any occasion, and some of these can be dressed up. I will say, of course, the Marine Master and the Speedtimer are going to be a bit larger, so in terms of under the cuff, not going to be the best, but this little Alpinist here, the Prospex Alpinist, I think would do a fabulous job in most situations, right? It is going to be slightly on the thicker side, guys, but I mean, come on, that's one of the beauties of the Alpinist. It does parallel, without looking anything like a Rolex Explorer 1, it does a lot of the same jobs in terms of it being robust and outdoorsy enough to wear it very casually, but I think handsome and refined enough to also be worn in more formal situations. We'll start here, 39.5 millimeters in diameter, 12.8 millimeters thick, and 46.3 millimeters lug to lug. 20 millimeter lug width. Actually, all of these have a 20 millimeter lug width, which is quite nice. Here, you're going to have the most affordable model with the most affordable movement. It's going to be that 6R55, but it does have that extended power reserve of 72 hours for a full 3 days worth of power reserve, beating at 3 hertz or 21,600 vibrations per hour in terms of that beat rate, which is actually quite competitive considering most of the Swiss have turned down their beat rates to match the 3 hertz of Seiko and to extend their power reserves. And Seiko's done the same with the same beat rate, but then now have since extended their power reserves accordingly. Originally these were closer to about 40 hours, then to 50 once they got to the 6Rs from the 4Rs, and now up to a full 72 hours, which is very impressive with the 6R55. So they've also gotten a lot of the kinks out in terms of the variation. I've had better luck, but I've heard of other folks not having great luck. But in terms of the 6R55, I'm hearing more and more good experiences with folks, and that matches the experiences that I've had. So very cool. You even have the kind of the old school Cyclops there. Also, some things thematically that these all shares, they all have blacked out date discs. And I really like that. Again, it's a little bit a subtle nod between each 3 of these models. Now, getting into the Prospex Marine Master, guys, the SLA 079 versus the SPB 505 new Prospex Alpinist. Here, you're also going to get, another thing that these all have in common, they all do have Dia Shield or Seiko Super Hard Coating over their steel, which is, again, quite nice. Here you're going to have a 42.6 millimeter diameter, 13.4 millimeters thick and 49.1 millimeters lug to lug. But of course, a lot of the magic of Seiko's casework is going to be showcased here because this wears extremely well. And honestly, if they shrunk it down any smaller, I don't even know if it would be as good. It might feel undersized because this just hits a sweet spot. Again, thanks to a lot of the undercuts, a lot of the bevels, the angles, all of that case geometry that makes this such a wearable timepiece at 42 millimeters, making it feel more like a 40 or a 41. Now, you're getting drilled lugs here, of course, beautiful bevels, on my unfortunate fingerprints from time to time. I'll give it a quick little wipe here. But yeah, this thing is awesome. It was my most worn watch of 2025. And, now it has two stablemates that, again, could easily be swapped in and out in most any situation. Also, you're going to get that diverse 300 meters of water resistance, which is very nice. And a 50-hour power reserve, which isn't bad. But, it's not as crazy. But one of the nice things is because it doesn't have 3 days worth of power reserve, it doesn't have 3-day power reserve written on the dial, which upsets some people. Now, here we go. Everybody loves an Omega Speedmaster, but the Seiko Speedtimer has just as rich of a history. Now, not in this particular aesthetic. Seiko's Speedtimers definitely have taken on many, many iterations over the years, but this one, of course, is meant to be a bit more traditional, but I think still, of course, screams Seiko, whether it be, of course, the Seiko branding on the dial or the revival of the Speedtimer name. And this thing is nice, okay? It is the SRQ055, 41.5 millimeters in diameter, 15 millimeters thick, which some people might go, 15, that's guys, it's an automatic chronograph with a column wheel and vertical clutch systems. So yeah, it's a hefty boy, but it makes sense. And honestly, it's displaying quite a bit on the dial. So, and even at the 41.5 millimeters in diameter, I think, again, it wears very, very nicely. It's 15 millimeters thick and then 49.5 millimeters lug to lug. So a little bit longer lug to lug, but as you guys can see, the lugs are turned down quite a fair amount, and they do have those beautiful high polished bevels. Now you're getting 100 meters of water resistance, or 10 bar, which is great. And you're going to get a dual curve. Oh, all these have sapphire crystals. These two have dual curve. This one has a flat with that Cyclops magnifier over the date. The movement in here is going to be your 8R48 chronograph movement, 45 hours of power reserve, beats at 4 hertz. So the nice thing is these two watches do have the full 4 hertz beat rates. So you're going to get that 28,800 vibration per hour sweep on either of those, which is quite nice. And again, this does have the column wheel and vertical clutch systems, although it is not an integrated movement. It is actually modular. So what's underneath the 8R is actually pretty much a 6R that is tuned up, and then they lay a chronograph module on top. So that's why typically you're not going to see a display case back on these movements, because the back is not that impressive, but everything else is also quite good. And then of course on paper, it's going to be really hard to find anything that directly competes with this at this price point. I've done full reviews of each of these watches already on the channel, but one thing, me guys, I have to differentiate myself between other channels. So one, presenting to you guys, even ahead of Seiko presenting these as a 3-watch collection and their own trilogy, I thought, hey, why not get something to commemorate this collection, this sub-collection, I should say. I reached out to DailyWatch, and they made something special for me to store and present these with. Check that out. Yes, it's beautifully customized there, and you can see you do have Seiko. 3 slots, guys. This is going to be perfect for these 3 watches. So watch me put these all away in here and see how they look kind of presented together all as one. Ooh, I'm looking forward to this, honestly, because, again, there's something about all 3 of them together. Again, they're great separately, and you can even supplement them with other models or other Speedtimers or other Marinemaster style watches. There are plenty of other Alpinists. Something about the 3 named watches right? All together with in the beautiful monochromatic colorways. And then, of course, I should say beautifully versatile. The same goes for this. Of course, there are other colorways you can put together for this DailyWatch customized roll. I'll leave link down in the description and a discount code. Hopefully it still works. But you guys can see, very, very cool. And there you have it. The 3 named watches: Alpinist, Marine Master, Speedtimer, all together. Again, there's something about these all together that just, I don't know, it just gets me, and I like that a whole lot. And then if I want to really, get the presentation points going here, there you have it. Look at that. What do you all think, guys? I think these are an outstanding option for a 3-watch collection. I, of course, love the Omega Trilogy. I even curated my own in terms of a neo vintage collection of Omegas, and I have a video on that. Definitely check the channel history for it if you're interested. But there is something about the rule of 3, and it's just, again, there's just something very balanced and very fun about it. So if I had to be down to 3 watches, this would definitely be an option, especially modern watches, non-limited editions. These are watches that you could still get, and honestly, you can get all 3 of them for less than the cost of a Railmaster or an Aquaterra. So I think that is pretty outstanding. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Actually, I still have to get them on the wrist. Also, big shout out to a new vendor who's been pretty fantastic. It's actually where I picked up my latest 2 acquisitions, which is the Watch Connection out in Orange County. So definitely check them out. Much appreciated from them. Of course, they helped me kind of complete this trifecta. So very cool here. And then, of course, I do have full reviews for each of these watches. So I'll leave those links in the description if you want to get down into the weeds about any of these 3. But with that said, let's actually start getting these on the wrist and see how they wear. Okay, guys, now look at that. Perfectly wearing. Beautiful on the wrist. Hardened case, I should say hard-coated case, hard-coated bracelet for the first time, which is nice in the Alpinist line, and also having the name across the dial for the first time in a very long time, which is also very nice. And then, of course, you get this monochromatic colorway that just kind of goes with everything. And I know more people are excited about some of the more punchier colors, but for me, I gotta get excited about watches that I can wear. I mean, it's great to have some that sit in the watch box. I have a whole collection of Seiko Alpinists, guys. I've done videos on them, and just they're their own sub collection as well within my overall collection. But man, these things are beautiful. Of course, if I get my wrist a bit too close to the lens, you're going to notice a fair amount of perspective distortion. It's going to make the watch seem a lot larger, but if I keep my wrist nice and low, check that out. All of a sudden, you're seeing the watch case more centered, and you're seeing more of the sides of my wrist. So that's really, again, due to the focal length and then the distortion that you're going to get in terms of your perspective. But as you can see, if I just tighten up the frame here, looks really fantastic. Look at that. And some of you might be concerned, hey, well, why isn't this the thinnest thing? This isn't their thing. This is not that kind of watch. This is about being robust and purposeful. And yeah, not everybody's driving a slammed, supercar. Some people enjoy a good SUV or a nice hatchback, right? So sometimes there is something to having that purposeful silhouette. It doesn't have to just be the lowest profile at all costs. So I think this is still very well balanced in terms of proportions. And there's a reason why this line has really sprouted from a very niche kind of offering to now quite a mainstream darling that competes with everything from, the Hamilton khaki field line all the way up to your Rolex Explorer and everything in in between to include things like your Aquaterra or Railmaster from Omega. So with that said, let's go ahead and get the next watch on the wrist. Okay, now quite familiar if you guys watched Teddy's recent year-end roundup of all of the watches that the select amount of YouTubers wore throughout the year. Yeah, this Prospex Marine Master hits a real sweet spot for me, guys. It's a full-size diver that feels like a dive watch should. And honestly, I love the proportions. Some people prefer the older proportions. I think they were amazing to look at, but not the best to wear. For me, again, a watch that I want to wear is a watch that I'm going to get my money's worth on. And this being my most worn watch of the year for 2025, I've definitely enjoyed this one quite a bit. And I do have, I hate to say it, nicer watches. I have watches that are nicer than this that got worn less. And there's something there. And I think it's not for everyone, but there are a lot of folks that do think about that. Like, hey, where can I get the wearing enjoyment and max it out for my dollar? And yeah, there is something about this watch right here. Again, definitely check the full review for it in the video description, but this one is just a gorgeous piece. It does it all. And again, you could put this in a room with a Rolex Mariner, an Omega Speedmaster, and a Blancpain 50 Fathoms, and people are going to know Seiko Marine Master generally. And, they might not be as excited about it as you are, but there's a certain level of street cred around the Seiko Marine Master name. And this is a watch that delivers on so many points. And yeah, price-wise, it's not too crazy. Again, full review in the video description, links there. But yeah, this is an awesome watch, and you've seen it on my wrist. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you've seen me really get a lot of great shots of this piece, as well as, of course, if you haven't already seen Teddy's video, do check that out, not just for my little segment, but for everyone's contributions, because it's some very interesting choices and a lot of diversity in terms of the different presenters, and whether it be their style, their formatting, all the way down to their particular wristwatch of choice. So let's go ahead and check out that next one. Okay, check that out. The Speedtimer. Look at that. Comfortable bracelet. 20mm lugs, so of course I do have some options in terms of straps, whether I want to put this on a NATO, a sailcloth, some type of hybrid strap. There are a lot of options that I think will look great. Rally straps, of course, on the leather side in terms of tying in to the motorsports aesthetic. Speedtimer. Now, it's not going to be quite as recognizable as something like a Speedmaster because of all the lore, but for those who know, they know that Seiko was one of the first to actually come out with a mechanical automatic chronograph, and the first with the vertical clutch, which I think again is great, and column wheel. I mean, there's a lot of historical significance to these movements, to this manufacturer. I mean, the fact that Seiko, again, here's one of the things, right? I love Tudor in terms of value proposition, right? I love Longines in terms of value proposition, but Longines in its current scope is limited. It's not meant to compete with Omega, and it is meant to be a little bit better than Tissot, right? It has its lane, and that's where Seiko's different. I mean, stuff like this does compete. No, it doesn't have the same luxury cachet, but in terms of the brand history, in terms of the historical horological significance, in terms of, the brand's vertical integration, dedication and into manufacturing in-house specifications with in-house design language here. I mean, across these three models, even the namesake are all original names that these watches have had over the years and built up, and then now recently re-released, because I'm sure at some point they realized that, you know, they couldn't expect everyone to be able to just go, oh, SKX, right? Or SPB. Like this is just better. It's nice to, oh no, that's the Speedtimer. That's the new Speedtimer. Sure, you know, enthusiasts will know this is the SRQ-055, but I think that there's something that's really cool about just having that name, and it is something that I think resonates for collectors. You know, hey, I got a Speedtimer, I got a Marine Master, I have an Alpinist, I got the trifecta, I have the trilogy. You know, there's something that's really satisfying about that. So with that said, we'll go ahead, get this off the wrist, set up for some Lume shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, we'll go ahead and hit the lights here. Hey, going out with a big Lume Bright bang for the last Seiko Saturday of the year. Of course, the Marine Master doing Marine Master things, but I will say, you know, for a motorsports oriented watch and a field watch, you're still going to get nice Lume legibility. I think, of course, paling in comparison to the big beast there in the middle. But one thing I always do like to work in is going to be a bit of a low light transition, because you're always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it is nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. And as you guys can see here, ooh, very handsome. And again, you're not always going to be in pitch black, so, you know, just don't get too upset about the Speedtimer or the Alpinist there having less lume, because a lot of times you're going to have, look at all this information that's on even the dial of that Alpinist. Okay, that's a fair amount of information, especially when you start taking into consideration that compass, right? Or on over here on the Speedtimer, right? There's a lot going on. So again, there's a lot to see. It's not going to be as distilled and simplified as, of course, the Seiko Marine Master, but yeah, I think it does the job. Look at that Alpinist, beautiful. All of these, I mean, look at the dial play, right? You have that warm, almost chocolatey charcoal anthracite. Then here you have, of course, that matted black that can give you some different tonality and shades, just because of the, not necessarily the color, but because of the texturing and the way that that's reflecting and playing with the light, versus, ooh, the Speedtimer, you get a little bit of everything. Look at all that there. Just multiple layers and levels, and finishes just snuck around in there. And I do like that little date punch out window. It's tough with chronographs to find good date windows, and I do enjoy that 4.5 punch with the parallel disc there. Very, very nice. So we'll go ahead and get the lights back on here for some closing thoughts. All right, guys. So yeah, you know, I like these watches. I own them, and I enjoy them quite a bit, whether it be that Alpinist, that Marine Master, that Speedtimer. All of these are just fantastic pieces that I personally enjoy. And as much as I enjoy them as individual, you know, pieces in a vacuum, I really enjoy them even more all together here, on the table, in a watch roll, on a trip, to be able to say, hey, I can just, you know, put all three. There aren't a lot of brands that offer that. I mean, even if you think about Rolex, right? You say you get a Daytona, an Explorer 1, and a Submariner. Those are great watches. Don't get me wrong. But the entry point is going to be a lot higher. The the returns, not financial returns, but I'm talking about the wear experience, will be diminishing at a much higher rate, right? Because at the end of the day, they're tool watches, and I love that these are tool watches with heritage, right? There are some straight up tool watches you could even replace these three with, but from a brand that you respect, from a brand that has accomplished as much as they do, from a brand that is as vertically integrated. I mean, are there any brands that are even as vertically integrated, guys? Even factory brands, and all they do is manufacture. Right? All they do is manufacture for their own sub brands and for other people. They're not as vertically integrated as Seiko. They farm out more. So, I mean, that's just something special about Seiko. And then the cool thing is, yeah, you know, your son can wear a Seiko 5. You know, your grandpa can wear an Astron, and you guys can all kind of enjoy that. Or you could go buy a Grand Seiko or a Creedor or a King Seiko for a special moment. There's just something special about the fact that they have so much breadth, so much range to just deliver on so many fronts. So I just wanted to share that with you guys, close the year strong with the message of, yeah, I mean, are there any reasons for me to get any more Seikos at this point? I have so many. They're all so great. You know, hopefully one day I'll get to present to you guys a sub collection of kind of my most prized Seikos on somebody else's channel. Like maybe I can go on Teddy's channel. So campaign for me, guys. With that said, though, let me know what you all think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please hit like, and if you're already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.